So,
Yeah.
we're back again. Precious, how do you say your middle? Erese.
It's Osagie-Erese. Precious Osagie-Erese.
Precious Osagie-Erese.
Yes, thank you. Oh, Erese, I even like that. Okay.
Are we back for part 2?
Yes, we are.
Because it's a new you.
It's a new you, new me, whole new situation.
That's right.
See this big old smile? That means we got things, we got movement, we got motion.
H you know.
You know, don't get me started.
And so yeah, we had to get you and we had to get a part of what's going on with you because it looks phenomenal from the outside and we want to know what's going on from the inside out too. For sure. So the last time we spoke, it was under the banner of Roll Up Life, and you were our second interview ever. Actually, we recorded the first 2 all on the first day. So like you a veteran Root. Thank you very much.
No problem.
And so things have changed since then, and now you have a new venture called Precious Canna. How did that come about?
Well, I hope we have enough time.
You ain't got nothing but time.
You never could really predict the cannabis industry. Like when you have a new industry with like regulations that are different state to state, things change. Like you don't have the same backing from the federal government as you would for any other industry. Like it's just liable for all your plans to like start somewhere and end somewhere completely different. And I think the cannabis industry will always teach you that you need to pivot or that think of other ways to be a part of it because it's still so new. So everything that people are doing right now is essentially trailblazing because this hasn't happened in a legal, federal system, and it still hasn't. So, when we started Roll Up Life, and shout out to co-founder Tyan Bryant. Yeah, we were that's the homie. That was my best friend, still my best friend since like elementary school. Like, if you listen to the first interview, we grew up together. And he's the one that really was like sounding the bell for me and letting me know like, oh, the cannabis industry is coming.
He came and got you out of your government job.
Got me out of my government job, left my good health care benefits to enter this entrepreneur situation. And it was just very eye-opening. We learned a lot building Roll Up Life. We really felt like we were doing something, not just business building but would support community and support where we came from. And we still believe we are. But there's a lot of intricacies and barriers, especially at the time being like 2 young African-American young adults trying to play in this industry or get in this industry. We just faced every barrier known to man, but we got over it. They said to raise money. We found investors, we raised money. It said build technology. Tyan's building an amazing technology app that'll rival a lot of what we're seeing in cannabis software right now. They say apply for your license to have a dispensary and a delivery. We did that. Got the highest scored application for that. Wow. But we ain't getting no license. There's no license now. Our life savings is involved, investor money is involved. We have a lease on a property and we don't have a license to operate this dispensary because we were not awarded one by our hometown. Now, that was a very difficult situation. As you can imagine, just trying your best, doing everything they're telling you to do to be successful in it. You do it while opening the door and trying to usher more people of color in, and then you hit this big kind of like, this I don't even know what to call it anymore, like the biggest barrier. Like you don't necessarily win a license. And at the time, it felt like having this license was this like golden ticket. You've made it in cannabis.
I did what y'all told me to do.
Right. And after everything settled, once I kind of looked around, I had so much response from the United States cannabis community. People called me from Colorado, the West Coast, just like, hey, we saw what you were doing, keep figuring it out, whatever's coming up. And I said to myself, there has to be another way to enter this industry or be a part of it without having this license, And that's when I thought about a brand. I was like, well, you can have one dispensary, but what about the products that are in all dispensaries? And then my mind my mind took off after that.
What lessons would you impart to small business owners looking to pursue similar ventures on going through obstacles? How would you tell them to pivot in their original plans too?
Yeah, and this is something I recently just said. Like, if you have a plan and a timeline, I recommend taking that timeline, just balling it up, throwing it in the trash, light the trash, roll it down a mountain.
Come on, dumpster fire.
Go catch it and get it and put it out and safely make sure no one's hurt. Because that's essentially what's gonna happen, and that's okay. But the most important thing is that you prepare to pivot. I think that the best entrepreneurs and in any industry are just true problem solvers. You're not going to execute exactly how you thought you would. There's gonna be things that cause delays. There's gonna be extra barriers, as we've seen in cannabis. So it'd just behoove, small businesses, entrepreneurs in cannabis to just prep for it, figure out how you will lead, and especially if you have a team in terms of pivoting, try to find other ways that support your fundamental ideas of what you're building. And that'll always keep you one step ahead. That'll never keep you complacent or waiting for something to happen and then trying to figure out. You will always be on your toes. So that's something I recommend, and that's really how I was able to put Precious Canna Co together.
Specifically, I mean, what you might have hit on this already, but I guess back to some of your initial obstacles, even after you went through what you guys went through with Roll Up Life, what inspired you to not give up altogether, go back to your government job, go back to another industry? What inspired you to get back up and, decide to keep going? And was that a fast decision for you? What was that process like?
It was definitely a multitude of things, Everything went down with the city of East Orange in April 2023. I remember April 10th, 2023. We were there. I know the exact date. And it was multiple things. It was really my community from East Orange, my family, my partner. Everybody was just really pouring into me because I was a couch potato, okay? I was like, I don't got no money. Everything is over. Me and Tiana as like friends and founders are trying to wrap our heads on what's going on. And I don't know who said this to me, but of one of the calls I got, somebody was just like, you'll be fine. You just need to package yourself. And I couldn't stop thinking about that. I was like, package myself? Like, what does that? And I kid you not, for like a week or two, I just stewed on it. And that's when I had the idea, okay, I love a pre-roll. I don't see any Black-owned brands, and this was at the time, 2021, in dispensaries. I don't see brands that are representative of Black women in dispensaries. So that was one thing that really got me kind of up and going. Literally within 3 weeks, I started to make moves. And then another part was that I didn't feel good. I didn't feel good because for the last year and a half, maybe even 2, I'd been telling everybody who would listen to me, if you're a person of color, you need to find your way into this industry. You need to figure it out. You need to build business. You need to come together, galvanize your community, invest, just wake up. And I felt like to usher that many people in and then go through an experience and just stop, that wasn't the type of message I wanted to continue to portray. So those 2 things combined had me up in another 3 weeks, and it was okay, new LLC, let's figure something out.
Sometimes you just gotta take your L's, you take a minute, feel your feels. Because you need the thing is, feel your feels.
Yeah, absolutely.
Let it out. And then.
Yeah, there's tons of lessons there.
Like Kamala, or like Hillary told Kamala, do something.
Do something. Michelle, actually.
Michelle, sorry.
Michelle said it. Do something.
Can you touch a little bit more on, and I think you were starting to talk about it with the focus on Black women in cannabis, but why go from wanting to own the dispensary to then pivoting to wanting to own a product in the dispensary? I think that's a genius flip in terms of, feeling your feels, pivoting and doing something. Why was that the pivot that you moved to?
For multiple reasons. Number one, I think just when you enter entrepreneurship, your business hat is always on. To be a good business owner, you're solving an issue, right? You're solving a problem. And I essentially found a problem, found a gap in the industry. There were no Black-owned brands, right? There were no Black women-owned brands in any dispensary in New Jersey specifically. So I was like, all right, well, who's trying to figure this out right now? So that is what sparked the idea. And as I kept trying to solve it is when I realized, oh my God, there is more to cannabis industry than just a license. There is a different avenue, but it's not talked about. It's It's not explored. I didn't find this information readily on the internet. I was on the phone. All the people who said, hey, call me if you need something. Well, hello, how you doing? I'm calling back. So can you tell me, how does this happen? Like, what's the partnership? How does it work? What's the rev share? And I just like kept just putting all that information together for it to make sense to me, to figure out like, oh my God, is there this asset light, minimal cost, still a cost, but another way to have a huge impact on industry that is not talked about right now on the East Coast? That too was like the light under my fire. Like, I really kept wanting to solve that issue, because I looked around and there wasn't enough of us trying to answer that question. I wanted to be the blueprint, like the trial by fire, because we need more representation in these dispensaries. Like, if you really understand the economics behind this industry, at no angle of it should people of color, specifically Black people, be left out of it. And this was a very direct angle that we had no occupancy in at all. And now I think there are about like 5 to 6 brands, Black-owned brands in New Jersey, and growing. And we need more. Like, that's just a handful, So that was literally the problem I wanted to solve, essentially, in cannabis. There's always a problem.
So I'm hearing you talk about the fleshed out idea. Can you tell us where specifically you were when you got the bing in your head for this company?
It was a couple bings. I had a couple ding, ding, dings.
You gave me a very specific place.
There was this very specific place. So for a while, I had the business. I think for the first 2 months, I started to like understand how the business would operate on like a very technical, functional side. But I had no idea what the brand would look like, what it'd be named, like how it would come across. I just knew there was this problem. And closer to September, in Houston, I went to Renaissance, a Beyonce concert.
Went to the what?
I went to Renaissance. I went to the Beyonce concert.
What happened there?
And I'm in my full getup, okay? Disco cowgirl hat. I'm with my sisters and my good friend. And I think as soon as them curtains opened and she said the mic is on, I was like, I know exactly what I'm gonna do. And just throughout that whole concert, like, just seeing another human being pour their entire element, their passion into like their craft, and the love you feel for it, how she made us feel from it, was just uber inspiring. I had goosebumps and inspiration just spilling out of me after that Renaissance concert. I don't think it was just me. I think it was everybody, but it applied to like different aspects of what folks were going through at that time. And immediately I got home from Jersey, I had sketched out exactly what my pre-roll box would look like. I literally have it in a journal. I had like Precious written up the side. I had like different iterations of it going on.
That horse helped you do all of that?
All of that. But I was skeptical about naming it myself. Okay, that came a little bit later.
I want to ask you, why did you come up, where was the inspiration to put your name as the brand? Because when you look at it, it just looks, your parents blessed you. They blessed you with a name, and then they low-key, and then they blessed you with a brand, whether they knew it or not. But it looks elegant. It looks elite. Yeah. It looks like something that, for people who are not that familiar with cannabis, when you first want to get them interested, that's the kind of packaging or presentation that you want to give somebody. What was the decision to put your name as the name of the product?
Yeah, I actually was not where I thought I would take it. Like, it was an idea, it was a thought originally, but I was like, oh, I got to come up with something a little bit more like, clever or something. I tried to be like cool and hip. I'm like, maybe I'll call it like Interlude, like Lude by Precious. That felt like a little cool. Hey, that might be a thing later on. I was like, maybe I'll call it like Puff by P, and I was playing with the letter P a little bit. I was like, but it's so hard with like IP and trademarking in cannabis, because everything is Canna something or Puff this or like Greenery this. There's like literally no cannabis name that doesn't exist already. But I still held off to it, and I was shout out to Faye Coleman, owner of Pure Genesis. You guys will hear about her, another phenomenal Black woman.
Faye Coleman, that's another root vet. We got to check that interview out. We love Faye.
We love Faye. One day I was talking to her again. I was sometimes like the fear of operating in the unknown would creep up often, but I always had like good community. So with Faye, I was just like, I'm gonna build this brand, but like, how would people really like it? What should I name it? And she was like, girl, are you crazy? It's called Precious. And I was like, that's kind of it's kind of cringe, like Precious. But she was so adamant on it. She was like, what do you mean? How could it not be precious? Like, you're precious. Like, everything that's gone on, like, you're a precious person. Like, it's precious. And it sat with me for a while. I was like, oh my God, like, okay, yes, this is. And then the more I thought about it, the more I was like, you know what? This brand is not necessarily just about me and how I like to smoke. It is me in pre-roll form, to be honest. But it has a huger representation, right? I wanted it to be synonymous with like resilience and perseverance and fight and courage and energy and fun and, like you said, classic and luxury and just all the things that like I think everyone has in them, but you never attribute to cannabis. And I was like, oh my God, that is pretty precious. So yeah, shout out to my parents. And when I called it that, I let it out. I let people know that's what it was, and it was just so highly received. And it's super easy to find on my wholesale agreements, so no one needs to wonder when people are buying. So on the business side, it was also very helpful.
I just had a vision. We were just telling Rakai's an artist. You see those back there, like those. That's some of her art.
That's incredible.
And he was like,
oh my God.
You need to like send it to these people so they can see, right?
Yes.
I don't know, maybe I'm crazy. I just had a vision with the way that your packaging looks and the way that we just described the elegance of it, the classiness of it. I think, just think, if you buy a bottle of the Sir Davis,
yeah,
and like somebody make a video with that, with the next to it,
I'm telling you,
I think you said
we
that,
here, we're getting there.
You said that to the dynasty. I think they'll take you up on something.
Precious, can you just tell us more about some of the strains that you offer, specifically Peak, Prime, and Pluto?
Yeah. So Peak, Prime, and Pluto, my 3 SKUs, my little babies. Think of like Daenerys Targaryen for any Game of Thrones heads out there. Those are my three little baby dragons.
Dragons, I love that.
Funny enough, I had a random conversation with one of the former founders or one of the first early investors in Victoria's Secret. And we were at a diner, and one of the things he said, like looking back, like one of the reasons why Victoria's Secret were having trouble, like in the beginning, really like reinventing themselves or like growing with the times, they realized like they had too many SKUs. They're trying to sell something to everybody all the time, like make it fit. And that just stuck out with me. I was like, if I want to launch a product, you know, to really be in cannabis or be in like kind of CPG, you want to have multiple SKUs so you can give something for everybody. But I was like, I think I just need like 3 main SKUs. I need 3 things that are representative of me and how I consume the plant, like what my relationship is there. I wanted that to be primary. So I thought of like my mornings, like Peak. And I remember I'm not like the every time wake and bake type situation, but my mornings can be a little like anxious filled because of what I know the rest of my day has to offer. So I love a good sativa in the morning, like right around breakfast time, but nothing that also brings me all of these effects of like sluggishness or unproductivity. So I generally wanted to live in a hybrid space, but I found out that they're like leaners. You can have a sativa hybrid leaner. You can have like an indica hybrid leaner.
Break it down, leaner.
A leaner, yeah. So it's like a hybrid, but it has like strains of sativa in it that gives you that sativa effect, and you call that like a leaner. So it's a hybrid, but a sativa leaner, or it's a hybrid or an indica leaner. And that just felt like my element because everything I wanted around my products was to have like functionality. I wanted people to always feel functional no matter what it was, but you can like reach a desired effect. So if you really wanted that burst of energy, if you really wanted to concentrate, lock in on work, you'll find there with Peak. And in hybrid, my hybrid, which is Prime, true hybrid, oh, chef's kiss. I call it like you're cooking and cleaning on a Saturday or just like you're walking the park with your dog, do whatever. And then Pluto is my indica leaner hybrid. You can definitely use that to like watch an episode of Martin or to go out with your friends. You know, you won't have this like full body kind of high stuckish thing. That's not really like how I prefer to consume sometimes, but not all the time. So like I really wanted my indica leaner to still have that essence of like relaxation, but if you so choose, you can still like, you know, head up to a festival or something like that. So that's how I created those 3 SKUs. And shout out to my sisters. They helped me, Angel and Marvelous. They helped me pick out the names, Peak, Prime, and Pluto. And it just made sense after that. So I created those 3 SKUs. I knew exactly what the pre-roll, the type of flower I wanted in it. And that's how we got there.
Yeah, I wanted to ask. I actually wanted to ask you because you've tried. Which one did you try?
Prime.
What was that experience like?
I feel like Prime is exactly what you described.
Yeah.
I feel like it's perfect for if you want to go for a little work. I feel like it's perfect if you just want to walk around, and even going out.
Yeah.
I think it's perfect because you're not so stuck.
Yeah.
You know, it's perfect.
It's just a vibe.
It's perfect.
Yeah.
And the way you have it pre-rolled, it's packed a lot. You know, not packed so much. But
Yeah.
it's packed
Just enough.
right. It's actually not a small pre-roll.
Yeah.
It's like
Trial and error.
Yeah, it's like right in the middle.
And that was a very specific decision, like the size of the pre-roll, which I gave almost everybody a headache about because it's not your average size. Most times you have a 0.5, which are minis or dog walkers, or you have a full gram. And just me, how I personally consume them full grams, I can like, I just don't like to relight all the time. You kind of like still get some of that inhale of smoke there. And then the minis can sometimes just go through fast, you know? And I was like, what's in between 0.5 and a 1 gram? I was like, 0.67? Like it just came to my mind. I look at all my advice. I was like, y'all need to speak up when I talk because I just create things and assume that all the things are there to make it happen.
That's leadership.
Come to find out that it's actually not super easy to make a 0.67 pre-roll. There are machines that make 0.5s. There are machines that make 1 grams. 0.67s or 0.7s require extra little, puzzle pieces, but we figured it out and we got it. Yeah. So through trial and error, and it made sense. I wanted it because I would love to, have a whole pre-roll that I can go through it in that one session and not have to like throw it out or relight it or whatever. And I wanted to provide that. And in the market, there was really only 0.5s and 1 grams. So that was another part of the problem that I was able to solve. So like my problem solving was layered. And business wise, I'm like, oh my God, I'm creating a separate market section for myself, and which is going to be advantageous, if I'm able to execute it.
What you talked about equity and inclusion with specifically Black-owned and women-owned and just in general.
Yeah.
What made you choose a specific manufacturer that you chose or the distributor for your product that you chose?
That's a great question. That was, yes. Shout out to Clay 9 QCC Group. That was a very important fact because once I found out how brands come to be, they're really what we call white labeling deals or licensing deals. Essentially, I own the IP of my brand and I can license it out to a specific license holder, cultivator. So those are the people who actually have the license to manufacture it and so on and so forth. But for that meant like I have to choose a manufacturer or cultivator who really aligns with what I'm doing, right? Who sees my vision, who's not going to tokenize what I'm doing because you can easily end up in that space. And I vetted a couple. I had some very interesting calls with a lot of like big companies. And I was actually like leaning that way. I'm not going to lie. Like, cause I didn't have all of the resources. Like this is like people still forget, like this is very capital intensive. I'm still self-funded 100% now cause I understand what it means to raise. And I'm almost like, all right, that level of information is super important now and almost safeguarding the equity that I own as a 100% owner. But knowing that if I do need to raise, I can position myself a lot better. And I wanted to have a lot of flexibility in my deal. I needed to be able to, select my own retailers, select my own strains in a sense, like really have autonomy of my product, which sometimes you may not have at the behest of your partner. They can just say, hey, this is the kind of, product we have. We're just gonna package it, put it up. So Clay 9 was a brand out of California that I just loved. Anytime I would visit Cali or anything like that, I would always go find Clay 9. It's just a great product. They had award-winning strains. One of my favorites is like LA Piff. It's just super smooth, dialed in. And one day I found out that they were coming to New Jersey. Like they were awarded a license in Plainfield, New Jersey. And shout out to Plainfield, the city of Plainfield. Shout out to Mayor Map. They were awarded a license. I was speaking at an event in Plainfield, and these 3 gentlemen come up to me and was like, oh, hey, we loved what you said and your idea and everything. We're Clay 9. We're launching here in New Jersey. I was like, shut the front door.
I know y'all.
I actually had in my bag, I had like a little pack of Clay 9. Don't ask me how I got there, but a little pack of Clay 9. I was like, this is, y'all are the same situation? And it was like, yeah, we're like, our cultivation is coming online pretty soon. And, from there, I was like, oh my God, we have to have a conversation. Like, let me tell you what I'm doing. And honestly, they did not even hesitate. They were like, And Clade, I'm their only other sister brand. Like, this is the first time they're even launching a separate brand because they have a huge brand in and of itself. Like, this is a renowned brand in Cali. So for them to even entertain the idea or like, you know, us come to a business agreement, it was just like, oh, like I had not had something align like that so well for me in a while. So shout out to the big guy up there. He be working it out.
Let me ask you specifically, because you were just talking about IP, and another great conversation we had was with, a while ago, was with Jessica Gonzalez about IP. And I just want to know, you mentioned Faye, who else are some of your industry friends that you might call on in times like this for conversation, for validation, just to, you know, picking each other's minds to make sure that you guys are on the same page, just for support? Who are some people you talk to?
The Rolodex is long, I'm not gonna lie, for me specifically. Now, I'd hate to miss anybody, but like, I just over the years have cultivated amazing relationships with people. And I think people take networking as just super transactional. Like, if I do something for you, you do something for me. That's one way, one form of networking, but another form of networking is like generally building relationship with people. Like people who got kids, checking on their kids, you know, people got birthdays, sending them a little happy birthday message, you know. Everything in business networking doesn't have to be so transactional. And I just, you know, in the cannabis industry, especially around people of color, it's just such a small community, you know, so we all lean on each other in massive ways. It's like, hey, do you have a contact for this person or know somebody who do this? Like the phone just never stops, and that interconnectivity expands our network over time, you know? So it's just a number of people that I have been blessed to be able to call, like even to get this, a big shout out I will give. And I think this is one that is like most needed because not a lot of people know this. And I'm proud to say this like really on a platform, but Kate Miller from Miss Grass, honestly, Kate, if you are watching this somewhere, like I will always give you the biggest, most tender hug when I see you, because that was one of my first calls, because Miss Grass was a brand that I adored, has already had national footprint. Kate is like just a super genius when it comes to entrepreneurship and understanding how to build community within her brand. And I think my first question was just like, so how did you do this, girl? You know, and you know, you always think about how gatekeeping works with, you know, not just IP, but even like business trade secrets for you. Like there are some things you just need to let people find out. But Kate was just like, there was more than enough space here for you. And if I can do it, you can do it. And again, that's one shout out I will give. And I was on Kate line. Every time I came up against the obstacle, it was like, all right, I've gotten myself to this point. I don't know what happened. That's one thing I want to also let folks know. Like if you are looking for support or mentorship from people, what you want to do is make sure you are putting in the work to show a mentor, like, I have exhausted every option before calling you. And your call might unlock my next step for me. So letting people understand like the gravity of like, I've done the work, I'm putting in the time. Like your expertise will really probably help me unlock another level. And I think I've just been that way for all my mentors. You know, if I'm calling you, it's because I know that you have access to something that will help me continue to move forward. I'm just glad I have people who are always willing to grant me that.
Okay. I feel like you touched on this a little bit, but how many dispensaries are you in right now, and what plans do you have to expand?
Yay! So we are in about 20 dispensaries, all the way from like Hackettstown, New Jersey to Atlantic City, New Jersey.
How many?
20.
When did this company launch?
This company launched last year, now in like May 2023. And now product is in the market. I'm still blown away, and we are like rapidly growing. We have more dispensaries coming online over the next 2 weeks, a lot of which you'll hear from. You can check out our website to see some of where those dispensaries are. But even that was off of pure relationships. Before I even launched a product, while it was even still a thought, I think even before the Beyonce concert, I was calling up a lot of my network and friends and industry relationships that had won dispensary licenses and were like beginning to operate. I called, I was like, okay, I see you. If I was to launch a brand, like, would you put me on your shelf? Like, where would it go? They were like, oh, top shelf. And I kept getting that answer more and more, and I just was like, okay, I have sales, essentially. I have where I need to go. So when everything came together, they were like some of my first calls and some of my first customers. And I'm excited the product is in the market. I'm excited to continue to grow. I think we're a little over 150 dispensaries in New Jersey right now, right? And for my product, you're not gonna find me in all 150. I really intentionally want you to know, like, my dispensary partners have another layer of meaning behind that. You know, that means they're supporting Black owned, they're supporting Black women. That means that they understand our ethos, right? And I think a part of cannabis that had been missing for a while is just like, you know, weed industry used to be about the drops. Like, it used to be about, you get a call, here's the menu, it's in and out. Like, you would learn about new strains, like everything would change, it would rotate. And that culture was kind of missing from the dispensary experience because everything was the same in every dispensary. So I was like, well, if I dropped, I'm not gonna drop just like, you know, I want people to go out and find my product. I want people to be like, oh, is it here? Is it there? I want to
Little exclusive.
A little exclusivity, right? You know? And so I just have great dispensary partners. I've been meeting a lot of new dispensary owners, and I'm excited to get into partnerships with them. But my goal is to be in about like half of the dispensaries at all times.
So with this with Precious Canna, what were we talked about your obstacles you face moving from one company into this. Now that you have established this and are continuing to establish this, what are some obstacles that you face so far?
Yeah, that's a great question. So like, it definitely has this new set of obstacles. Of course, one of it being like funding. I was just able to find a way to continue to be self-funded. And that just comes with like, again, that's everything I learned in deal negotiating. During my Roll Up Life days, we negotiated like dozens of deals. Not all of them went through, but that understanding of how to negotiate something, how to say, okay, we'll do this, you do that. It's just really a skill that I feel like I developed, and it helped me negotiate good deals that let me say, hey, I'm bringing value here. So I can save monetary value here and apply it maybe somewhere else, but this is the X amount of value that probably equates to that monetary value. And, you know, let's figure out how to make that work. So that deal making skill, I think, came in really clutch, and that was a barrier I definitely tried to navigate. Another one was around like, you know, just understanding the partnership you have with your cultivator, or whoever you're using if you're in that white labeling licensing deal. Like, you really want to make sure you have a strong partnership and a strong communicative partnership, which means it's like, you know, they have to operate compliantly, which means we all have to operate compliantly. So we want to make sure all of our I's are dotted, all of our T's are crossed. Especially when I was like navigating packaging, I wanted to make sure that my packaging was compliant. Like, I was creating something a little new, a little different. We needed to test this. We got it approved by the CRC. I needed to make sure that it came child resistant at first. So like, just really that learning barrier. Like, you really do have to become a student of the game before you start to enter it. And I think you can do it simultaneously, but you can't skip the step of really learning and figuring it out so that you can set up SOPs, standard operating procedures, so that when you're able to not be there as the founder entrepreneur, you have others who you've now enlisted to like run a certain section of your business. You trust them to do it because of your standard operating procedures. So that's one thing you can't really always control, like the production cycles and like new laws that the CRC might do. Like, they recently changed the expiration date of products to 6 months from 1 year, which was like a huge take to the whole industry, because usually cannabis has a shelf life of like a year. Like, most times, like, I hope most people aren't keeping cannabis for a year, but it has an authentic shelf life for about a year. But in a new ruling, they moved it to 6 months, and we are actually lobbying to get it back to a year. But that's something I had to like work with my partners to understand, like, hey, you know, there's a timetable on this. So like, how are we moving this? Like, what kind of marketing are we doing? I'm a new brand. How do we get eyes on me? It can't just be from me alone. Like, so, you know, all of these things are you're learning in real time and you're applying in real time. Mind you, I have like 20 dispensaries. I'm trying to work with each one independently to create programming and introduce myself to the community. So overall, like the challenges that come with building a brand are just making sure that you understand how brands even work in the cannabis space, like who your real partner is, who your real customer is. Like, one thing I had to learn is that my customer is both the end user, our rather recreational consumers, and the dispensary partners. You know, there's multi-layered there, and how do you work as a company to support both partners? There's challenges there being like, you know, an independently operated small business right now. I'm building out a team, but it's still so new that we're learning a lot from the business. So those are just some of the challenges that we're facing, and we're learning new ones as time goes on. But it's been fun. I think every challenge is teaching us something new and more specific about building a business, especially as we're looking to expand.
Precious, it's funny you mentioned expansion, but you did mention Clade 9 and the fact that they are a California-based company. What would be your plan to expand across state lines given the obstacles currently with federal legalization? Is there a plan to at least expand into the California market given that they are a California-based company?
No, that's a great question. You know, without the support of federal legalization, you cannot essentially it's not easy to rinse and repeat. You know, each state has its own set of rules, its own set of compliance rules, even around packaging, even around partnerships, so on and so forth. So I'm really actually trying to keep it to the East Coast border. I feel like there are a lot of lessons learned from like the California, Washington, Oregon markets. And you understand how brands were able to be super successful now that those are more mature and saturated markets. So on a business tip, I didn't think that launching in Cali, even while my partners are in Cali, and it might be a little bit more streamlined to do it, I just felt like the marketing side of it would be a huge lift. That's where spend will actually need to be activated to like launch in LA, let all the LA people know who I am, or I don't really have a presence there. I know that my presence has been rapidly growing on the East Coast, right? And I look at opportunities, especially on the business side. You know, Maryland recently legalized, and they are, I think, just surpassed $1 billion mark in sales total. And it is such an advantageous market. I have an affinity with Maryland. I went to Howard. I love the DMV area, and I know a lot of different operators in Maryland. So I'm essentially, that made sense as a very good next step. Is to, all right, how do I find my own new partner here? Because Clayton's in there, but I need to want to like maintain that same level of quality. So I need to figure out like who is growing quality craft cannabis in Maryland, and at that, like who would be a good partnership? Who has that ethos with me? Because I think the same could be said for Maryland. There are very limited, you know, Black-owned brands, yet alone Black women-owned brands. So there's another opportunity with the same problem there. So states like Maryland, Ohio, I think would make sense for expansion. Even Florida. Florida might just legalize recreational cannabis this November. It's on the ballot. And they might not. Florida is a tricky state. But if it does, again, one thing I want people to always remember that like with new industry, you know, first market advantage is very important. But you can trip over yourself when you're moving super fast. So you do have to find a pace that makes sense. But as like new states come online, it's very advantageous to find a way to be a part of it. So I think that just made sense for my next layer of growth. It does mean new partnerships. It does mean, you know, new retail partners and getting to know a new state and its new compliance laws. Like, will I have to change my packaging? Will I have to like, you know, change my sizing or the amounts? These are all new things that we'll find out, but we're excited to do so as we're looking to more of like Maryland, Ohio, and maybe even New York one day.
So we talked about the obstacles, but this time we want to know what came easier this time around and what tools or resources would have been beneficial to you.
Oh, that's a great question. I definitely had an analogy that like as I was building, I had like a little dart, and I felt like I was just throwing that dart, and it was like bow, bow, bow every single time because shout out Sexy Red. It just was
I was about to say, is that to be the name of the interview? We about to call this Precious Root X Precious Bow Bow Bow.
bow, bow, bow. Sexy was probably another level of inspiration somehow, some way. But no, but I did feel like I had it a lot more like dialed in. You know, at this point now, I've probably been in cannabis industry since 2018. What's that, like 5-6 years now? Almost seven. So there's a lot of information. Like I used to pitch, like, you know, win pitch competitions. I knew how to explain my business. It didn't take me long to write my business plan. I knew exactly, you know, who my target market was. I knew my numbers. I knew how to put together a financial statement. I knew how to put together my pro forma. I knew how to, if I wanted to raise, put it all together to go seek investors. I just had it. I had all that information to move a lot quicker. So steps that we took in the beginning with Roll Up, like when we were just finding out and we would look back and be like, oh my God, we wasted like 6 months trying to vet this one thing when we could have been doing all of that. all of that has really helped me like move ninja-like, I'm not gonna lie, as I was building this out, because it's crazy to think that, and I had an experience the other day. I went into Cookies Harrison where we're at, and I purchased one of each pack. Mind you, I have these packs all over my house, in my car, everywhere. They've just been everywhere. I see them all the time. But those 3 that were actually purchased hit me like a ton of bricks. I was like, did I just do that? Like, are we in the same universe? Like, it was crazy. It was one of those few moments, because you're head down working so hard, you can come up and smell the flowers, and it was beautiful. But back to the things that made it easier was that level of education, was that network that I was able to call and say, hey, I have a question here, I have a question there. What's my just that finer understanding of cannabis, understanding of terpenes, understanding of the endocannabinoid system, like what I really wanted to pull out, what variations of the plant did I really, find myself with the CBN contribution or CBD contribution. I had all this information that just helped me really like dial it in, right? And I was able to work with other experts where now we're working really quickly. Even my packaging team, shout out to AE Global, who did an amazing job, We just all were speaking the same language. We're very much my first time around building business. You have to learn the jargon. You have to take a while to feel comfortable in some of these meetings. So that definitely I think was like a super power that I had. And then just even before cannabis, I was a journalist before that. I was a producer, news producer. And my whole...
What?
Yeah, I was a producer. I know. I worked with, but prior to working with City Hall, I was at City Hall because I was attending Columbia Journalism School. And I was at J School because I wanted to reignite my journalism career, because at the time I had just left News 12 New Jersey as a producer.
Yes.
And before that, Precious the producer. And then in DC, I was working with like CNN and NBC. And during my producer days, I had a goal of creating news that really impacted and supported the Black community. And being on an executive producer route, trying to get there so that I knew that the news that was being reported, especially as media was being manipulated, could really like find impact into our communities. So in the same way, I found that parallel in the cannabis industry. But my journalism skills have really supported me as a cannabis entrepreneur, like in terms of telling my story and being able to publicly speak and be in front of cameras and just like, get that across. Has been like an extra little that I had going on. So those are some of the things that definitely made this time around a lot more dialed in for me.
HU School of
Communications. School of C.
Just double check that.
Amira just DM you. I put a behind the scenes picture of Amira Fair. She went to Benedict with me. She said she went to journalism school with you.
Oh, yes. And because J School is also, Columbia J School. Shout out to all our alumni. Like, that's the highest level of studying for journalism you can get. And I was just so excited to have been a part of that, had that a part of my journey as well.
I'm gonna ask, but I think you really hit on this already. How did your taste influence your product and the terpene profiles you chose to use? I think you hit on it.
Yeah, like again, I really wanted something that spoke to the entirety of the day. And the super cool thing I'll let you in on, and why I just have great partners, like Clade already had award-winning strains. And because they're just so dope and they believed in the vision that I have, they gave me like full autonomy. Like they looked at their catalog, we looked at the terpene profiles that were connected to each strain that they had. And we started to just sort of like puzzle piece different blends that would create Peak, Prime, and Pluto. They're actually individual strains as well, not just the name of the boxes, but it's what we call the strain. I honestly left the clever names were leaving me. I couldn't think of another strain, Kitty Gumdrop Blue or something like that. I can't keep up. So I was just like, Peak, Prime, Pluto. We gotta get this thing on. But, we're able to look at their catalog. They just have really good cultivation experts. And we were able to like say, okay, we can blend this, and this will pull out this effect. We can blend these two, and through trial and error, a lot of taste testing, which I enjoyed. We were able to really figure out and be like, aha. And there's still some tweaks that I think I can see happening over time. And I'm just excited to see how people respond to that.
What's the importance of ownership specifically, and how has it influenced your approach on launching this product?
Ownership now to me is very important, there will be a time where you come, especially as an entrepreneur in cannabis, you're gonna need to figure out funding. And that can come in many different ways, right? It can come through investment where you have to shell out equity. It can come through debt. It can come through angel investors. It might even come through friends and family. But when you still, all these years, when we first started, I think the statistic was like 2% of owners around the country, of license holders around the country were Black owned. And then like, I think 6 years later, it's like 4% of owners or 5% of owners around the country for licenses are Black owned. So it's not like this huge incline that we're seeing. So that resonated with me a lot. That was like, all right, that's gonna be very important in the story that I'm telling, right? And in the partners that I'm connecting with, because that's how we're gonna be able to move the gambit, really, when we talk about DEI and cannabis. It's through ownership. It's not just gonna be about what we accomplish in policy or what we accomplish on the educational front. If we do not have stake in the game, if we do not have skin in the game, we're always gonna be left behind in an industry that is literally a fast bullet train moving a mile a minute. So the more that we can teach and educate ourselves on the importance of ownership, the more that we can also realize, all right, you don't wanna necessarily do you want 100% of a watermelon or 100% of a grape? Come to understand that and know when you're ready to raise and shell out equity. Just still protect some level of ownership that gives you direct control. I think that's going to be a game changer. The more and more that I see, people of color come into cannabis as entrepreneurs and setting up shop, it's going to be critical, especially as we're looking at rescheduling on the horizon. We have this huge opportunity to see cannabis go from Schedule 1 to Schedule 3, which is going to unlock, who knows, right? What sort of federal regulations might come down from that? Maybe FDA will get involved. Maybe IRS will remove our 280E tax burden. This is gonna unlock an unprecedented level of capital to enter the cannabis industry. So that barrier should be coming down pretty soon. So there's a lot of momentum, right? We got international cannabis legalizing. Like, there's a lot of momentum happening that we just cannot afford to miss this opportunity.
I had some watermelon this morning. little lemon juice on top of that watermelon, boy, that's a whole snack. Sorry, go ahead. You got the last question.
So touching more into the ownership, what's the significance of Black women ownership, like the cannabis, and what steps can you speak on about actively uplifting women and taking steps forward?
That's a beautiful question, because I think that Black women are we're just so underrepresented all the time, underestimated, under everything. And it takes extra and extra to show that we are not just more than capable, but can really thrive. And in cannabis, it was even more so. And I felt that on myself because there's always this juxtaposition when people realize that I consume, all right? On any given day of the hour, you can find a pre-roll in my hand. I'm not too far from it. But when said, it felt like the stigma would immediately be placed over me, right? Even in my house, I feel like I have this cabinet. I call it it feels like my naughty cabinet. It's all the way in the corner, but if you go in there, you're gonna have a party, okay? It's all types of stuff in there, but I keep it hidden, for when people come in my house and everything. It's just kind of it doesn't feel authentic. And when I was creating the brand, that's one thing I really wanted to chip at. I wanted there to be this fusion of that Black women can consume, and there is nothing wrong with it. There is not one thing wrong with it. And I always realized that even with people, the power of perception is super important, how we even see cannabis. And that played into the psyche of how I wanted to build my packaging. I wanted my packaging to not feel like it was even pre-rolls in there. I wanted my packaging to be something that you leave right there on your center table or on your bookshelf or something.
Not something taboo.
Right. It's not, you wouldn't want to put it up there in the naughty closet.
Right.
It's too good for, you want it to be seen. And then when people roll it out, you okay. I see how you get down. And that was super important for me. And I just really wanted Black women to know, we have found a safe space in cannabis. You do not need to be afraid when you walk into a dispensary and not see something that speaks to you. And let that apply even outside of cannabis. That is in every other scope of what we're doing. I have not stopped looking at Rakaya's painting over there. And if a Black woman can paint that, Like, y'all can't see it. Find a way to, like, flash the camera over there or something during editing. But, like, you know, like, everybody in their own right, especially Black women, should be able to be their authentic self all the time. And I hope that my brand is going to be representative of that. And that would just make me feel like I've accomplished what I need to do.
Switching complete gears. Favorite Beyonce album?
I'm gonna give it the Renaissance. And it could have been B-Day. It could have been Lemonade. Lemonade had me, that was a slept on one because it was really going her through her trials and tribulations, but boy did she let us in on, but it was a beautiful story all the way up until the end. Like, you just see how someone finds love again, you know? Honestly, I found love again with the cannabis industry through building my brand. But I think Renaissance was so special because it just allowed people to be their free selves. It just invited people to, like, let your hair down, like, you know, get as wild and crazy as you want to be. You have nothing to be ashamed of. And till this day, like, I let that soundtrack play when I'm waking up to get ready, when I'm waking up to do an interview, and it starts from, you know, I'm that girl, right, all the way into, like, Summer Renaissance, and it really captivated me. So of course, I have to give it a Renaissance right now.
I've been to every single Beyonce tour.
I felt like I was talking to a stan.
Except for that one. I was so pissed last year when I couldn't make it to. That's the only one I missed, but I saw it.
Well, it was a little pricey. I'm not gonna lie. Sis hit us over the head. It was a little pricey, yeah.
I'm keeping it here. Favorite Beyonce song to get high to?
Favorite Beyonce song to get high to? Actually, these days might be, what is it? Sweet honey buckin'. A little sweet honey.
Okay, last question. Will there be a Cowboy Carter tour, or will it be a residency, and where will it be?
Oh, it's too much for my brain to think about right now. Lord knows I'm on the interwebs trying to put the clues together. Beyonce, we're all begging for something, all right? I think I would actually take visuals over a full tour, because the coining, we gotta let the coin relax. We like to see it in the account for a little bit. Something. I would love to see visuals for Cowboy Carter. That would be just super dope, you know. I think we ain't appreciate what she did for
Anthology for the fifth one?
No, when she did the what is it? It was for Lion King.
Oh yeah, yep. And she said forget y'all.
Yeah, I appreciated it.
Black is King.
Black is King.
That's right.
I appreciated that thing down. Downloaded Disney Plus and everything. Right. I was on it. So come back.
To wrap it, Precious, I have to tell you, there's been several times sitting here during this interview that I found myself getting up, my eyes starting to water up a little bit, starting to get just a little bit emotional, just out of pride for, I don't know if it's because you were one of our first guests, if it's because we're fellow Howard alum, or if it's just because you are a successful Black woman. And when you succeed, we succeed. We see our success in you.
Thank you for that.
You will always have the support of every member of Root Express and Root Express as a collective.
I appreciate it. And likewise, this was a full circle moment. That's why I was excited to chat. Like, y'all could have asked me anything. I was going to let y'all know. I appreciate that because, that's what I'm trying to do. Thank you, Khalil. We should take a group picture. I need to take a picture.
We can can we do one good old hug?
Yes, absolutely.
Just to wrap it up.
Thank you so much. And thanks for these great questions.